that can only be observed or known because you have the experience of actually playing. So to me, it was just a matter of you got to bring the entire picture, not just one segment, in order to make an informed decision. And Kevin Durant, in my humble opinion, he wanted to come back. I think his heart was in the right place. He's a competitor. But I had to deal with that. And that was the most difficult decision I've ever had to do, probably in my life as an agent, is I had to talk to Derek. Not D Rose, not the guy who averaged 27 points a game and the MVP. I had to talk to the man and say, look, you got to think and see the whole picture based on our experience and wisdom and collectively make a decision.
See, you think Lacob's statement is the tale. To me, the biggest tale is 12 or 14 minutes. And again, you have a coach who played in the NBA. He's a former athlete. Show me anywhere, and look, I'm just speaking off the top of my head, but show me anywhere where someone misses a month, particularly with a leg injury, no minutes restrictions, we're going to throw you out there like you ain't missed nothing. Anybody with a brain would be like, well, hold on, man, that's how you compromise other parts of your body.
Whitlock, you're right. But it was a smart play not to actually articulate a minutes restriction. All that does is strangle yourself.
What about execute one?
Okay, execute one. We don't know how that game was going to play out fully, but look, they were on the wrong course in terms of minutes played. By that time, he had played up to 14 minutes in the game. 12 of the 14. There was something even more telling than that. And I was disgusted in the opening moments. Pre-game was a lot for me. For a guy coming back after a month off, Kevin Durant was doing a lot in pre-game. He was doing his normal dances. You shouldn't do your normal pre-game when you haven't been on the court in a month. He was doing his normal workout routine, and then this is what was the telltale, which I had to put on Steve Kerr. Who did the opening tip-off for the game? Who was doing the opening jump ball?
Durant.
Kevin Durant, using maximum exertion to go get a tip, that there's no positive consequence. You get to start the game off. You know, in the third quarter, the other team gets the ball. So I was just sitting there like, oh, this is not good. They're treating this like a normal moment instead of a ramp-up moment. But KD, he didn't move in the first initial setups. Those first threes, those were all just catch and shoots. Then he finally said comfort and maximum exertion, to your point. Once you get off that dry run and them 2-and-2s and 3-and-3s and you have to go 6th gear, it pops.
But Marcel, I don't think they were doing normal. I think the jump ball was like a message. It was like, oh, no, he's all the way back. He can do it all.
Okay.
Let's put him in Oklahoma drill.
Right.
Let's do it all.
He's ready.
He can do jump ball. And their whole mindset was like, oh, we can sit him out here for 40 minutes and he can get 40 points and nothing. And I'm just sorry. Boogie Cousins, when he came back from injury, 3 or 4 minutes at a time, why did they could have taken care of this dude during the game? We're going to play him 4 or 5 minutes, pull him out, 22 minutes tops, and they would have won the game. But to me, they were so caught up in and we keep talking about what the narrative Kevin Durant was caught up in. I believe they got caught up in, man, people are acting like Toronto is better than us. Like we're not a hobbled team, and that's the only reason they're getting away with this. And they were determined to prove a point last night. That anybody with a brain knows if KD's healthy, this is not, they win 4-1 probably.
Sure.
But they got caught up in that narrative. The people were caught up in Toronto.
The desire to prove their superiority.
Yes.
No doubt informed this. But and you made the point, there's also desperation. They realize Andre Iguodala's not right. Klay Thompson's not right. Boogie Cousins not right.
Sean Livingston.
This is probably our last shot. They can see around the corner. So, you know what? Damn everything else, and let's go for it. You mentioned the tip. KD dunked in warm-up.
Exactly.
So KD was all in on wanting to buy the narrative too, and what they needed was somebody saying, KD, you don't have anything to prove. We know where your heart is. We're not going to play you because we're not going to take advantage of what you want to do. No one with the Warriors did that. And that, to me, was the negligence in this.
For me, the worst person in all this is Steve Kerr. And I love that Anthony Slater asked him a question and he dodged it after the game.
Anthony Slater with The Athletic. Is there any regrets about bringing Kevin back into the series now with what happened?
Again, I'm going to leave that to Bob.
This man has an opinion on immigration, everything that goes on at the White House, any police shooting in the area.
Yeah.
But Kevin Durant, the guy, he's in control of his playing time. I'm going to leave it to Bob Myers. Are you kidding me?
I'm going to defend it in this regard, is that obviously the Warriors know this is a bad look for them. I want one person speaking to address that. I don't want Joe Lacob speaking out, Bob Myers, whoever it might be. I need one person to take it and to carry it and to accept it. And Bob Myers put it on himself. He also suggested, and this is where I divert from Bob, because saying there's no one to blame, but I know how this world works. I'm sorry. From everything, and I'm colored by the fact, and I've shared it with you guys, I, for the last couple of weeks, was told this is a serious injury. KD should not be playing in this series. It would be a mistake for him to play. They had to know as much as I did. Now, I'm not in the midst of it, and I know when you're in the fire and you're competing and you want to get it done, maybe that colors your opinion. But someone needed to take a step back and say, we're not going to exploit KD and his future. We're going to put that at the expense of us getting where we want to go. And nobody did that. So is there somebody to blame? Yes, because the Warriors, whether it was Joe, whether it was Bob, whoever, the Warriors collectively had the ability to say, this is a bad bet. We're not going to do it, no matter what our end game is.
I will double down on that. Singular message, singular messaging, one messenger. Okay, but I want to defend them in a different way. That locker room scene. Everyone's emotional. Some are even in tears. Kevin Durant reported raw emotion, needed time away from everyone in that same locker room. And Steve Kerr, as a coach, has to realize that this is my time to get command of my team because, guys, we survived. I understand we just lost one of our greatest soldiers, our greatest soldier, but we survived. Take you back to my raw world of football. Move it up 10. That's a term that coaches use when your teammate goes down on the field and you're sitting there, outpour of emotion. You're thinking about your own sports mortality. And then he's like, move it up 10, keep practice going. Steve Kerr in that moment when everyone's emotional and no one's even talking about the survival of that game in this series, said, I'm not going to be emotional with the other guys. It's time for me to be cognitive and think about we have another opportunity. So he zigged when everyone else was zagging. And I think that may have come from a conversation with Bob Myers. It's all on me, but also redirect this energy towards our next game and our next opportunity.
You know, one thing I want to point out is, you know, we can all point the finger and look at whether it's Steve Kerr, the Warriors, but one thing in dealing with these young people is that we have to give Kevin Durant respect in that he understands his body better than anyone else. And Kevin Durant had to authorize or work with the Warriors to say that I'm ready to play. And I think until we hear from him, because these kids aren't puppets. These kids know themselves. These kids deserve the right, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, to say if he feels he's ready, maybe, and I'm not.
DJ, that's not how it goes. You know that.
Absolutely.
The trust issue, we trust them to actually tell us more than what we
I'm going to tell you why there's a little bit of credibility with what BJ said.
Oh, yes.
We're in this player empowerment.
There you go.
Era,
there you go. These players today have more information available to them than any time in the history of sports.
Mm-hmm. And more leverage.
And more leverage and all of these things. Under no circumstance is any organization going to tell Kevin Durant when he can and can't play if the man come in that office and say he's...
But this is not a black and white conversation. This is the gray, murky area. So your trust actually works against you. I've been there before, misdiagnosed, told I had 2 lateral growing strains. In football, in basketball, you hear growing, suck it up. You know what I had? A torn abdominal wall, which meant I shouldn't have gotten injections. I shouldn't have kept playing, and I suffer for it. KD, when he's in the gray area, I could push it, but maybe I shouldn't. I trust your opinion. I trust your opinion. I bring it all as a collective. I think KD got seduced like Kawhi got seduced in San Antonio. He trusted the staff, went out there, got hurt, and said, I don't trust
I'll say this.
further.
And Rick and I were both in the league. Michael Jordan had the same situation when he broke his foot. And he went against the doctor's opinion and played in the playoffs and perhaps had one of the great playoff moments in all of sports. He had like 63-something points versus the Boston Celtics. I'm not saying it is cut dry whether you should or you should not.
Right.
In the end, you have to defer to the athlete. And I'm not saying it's right, wrong, but Kevin Durant had to at least acknowledge that he was willing to accept that responsibility.
Yeah, I agree
and
with
I
that.
think we owe that to him. We owe that respect to him to say
I agree
that.
with that.
The question is the messaging, though. If the medical staff, if the Warriors come to me, I'm Kevin Durant, and they say, you know, if you play, you could tear your Achilles. And I make my decision based on that, understanding what the worst case scenario is, as opposed to the messaging is, we think there's a 70% chance that you could get through this without a problem.
Right.
It depends on how you present the issue. And again, yes, I believe in all that empowerment, but they sat Klay Thompson in game 3, and he wanted to play so badly, he still suited up. And based on how he measured himself in game 4, probably a smart decision, but that's not what he wanted to do. Sometimes, look, my family does it all the time. They save me from my worst self.
And again, Klay Thompson, it's not written in stone like it apparently was before this with Kevin Durant that he was leaving. The Warriors still had a future with Klay Thompson, and they treated him that way. There is no future in their minds before this game with Kevin Durant, and that's how they treat him. Like, oh, this is somebody else's commodity, not ours, after a game or two here. And again, I'm just going to go back, and this is somewhat of a cheap shot at Steve Kerr, but I don't care because I didn't like. You don't have to dodge. All you had to say was, hey, we all regret our decision, but Bob Myers is going to handle it. He could have said that. He could have taken some responsibility instead of ducking and dodging. Mark Jackson wouldn't have had KD on the court, or he certainly would have accepted responsibility for it. Stick around.